The message from the stars came without warning. No sound, no light, just a ripple through every communication system on Earth, a pulse that froze satellites mid-broadcast and silenced the networks. Then, a voice, cold, calm, and impossibly vast. It spoke in perfect human language, yet there was something off about it, like each word was carved from metal and pressed into the human mind. It called itself the Imperial Regent of the Zareth Dominion, and it demanded Earth's immediate surrender. Humanity, it said, was now a subject world of the Empire. Resistance meant eradication. For 3 days, the skies stayed silent. Governments panicked. The United Nations met in emergency session, but even as diplomats argued, orbital sensors caught movement beyond the moon. Massive silhouettes glided against the stars, casting shadows across the planet's upper atmosphere. Cities watched in terror as alien vessels, sleek, curved, and glowing with blue fire, entered orbit. They blotted out constellations humans had known for millennia. The message was clear. Earth was surrounded. At first, people thought it was a bluff, maybe a hoax, or some strange phenomenon. But then the Empire made its demonstration. Over the Pacific, a Zareth ship fired a single beam into the ocean. The blast boiled water for miles and sent tidal waves crashing against coastlines. Power grids failed, satellites burned out, and panic spread faster than any virus. Within hours, global networks went dark. Humanity stood in the shadow of extinction, and for the first time, the species that had dreamed of stars realized how small it truly was. But there was something the Empire didn't understand. They believed humanity was fractured, weak, divided by borders and greed. What they didn't know was that deep in the void beyond Neptune, something old had been waiting. Something built not by governments, but by those who believed Earth's survival depended on secrecy. For decades, a hidden fleet had been forming, a Black Armada forged from the wreckage of forgotten wars, powered by experimental engines and human resolve. It began as whispers, rumors of ghost ships drifting in the dark, unregistered vessels moving without identification. Engineers, scientists, and soldiers who vanished from official records had become part of a project so classified it had no name. They called it only the Ark Initiative. Its mission: prepare for the day when humanity would no longer fight itself, but something far worse. On the 4th night after the Empire's ultimatum, every major city went dark. The Empire demanded an answer. Earth's governments had none. They couldn't fight. Their defenses were useless against the ships orbiting above. Yet somewhere, in the silence of space, a signal pulsed from beyond Pluto, old Morse code, something only a handful of specialists would even recognize. 3 words: "We are coming." The transmission came from nowhere that should have existed. Sensors tried to lock on, but the source kept shifting. Then, the stars behind Pluto began to flicker, like a veil being lifted. Out of the void, enormous shapes emerged, black, angular, and bristling with unfamiliar weaponry. They bore no insignia, no flag, no nation's emblem. Only one thing marked them: the symbol of a human hand, open and reaching toward the stars. The Imperial fleet adjusted orbit instantly. For the first time since its arrival, the alien formation showed hesitation. Their sensors scanned the black ships, but readings came back scrambled. The Empire had cataloged thousands of species across the galaxy, but none had built ships like these. Their hulls absorbed light. Their drives bent gravity itself, and they were silent. No radio chatter, no visible propulsion. Just a cold, patient formation of humanity's ghosts. On Earth, people saw nothing yet. Power was still out in most regions, communication jammed, but in hidden bunkers and underground command centers, old systems flickered to life. Generals and analysts watched as strange human signals appeared across the network, using codes abandoned decades ago. A single message reached the remnants of the world's defense council. Do not surrender. Earth still stands. No one knew who commanded the Black Armada. Some believed it was a breakaway military force from a secret alliance. Others whispered that artificial intelligence had taken control of lost ships and turned protector. But those who truly understood, those who had kept the Ark initiative hidden, knew this was no accident. It was humanity's final contingency, built by visionaries who had seen beyond politics and survival. They had predicted that someday, something would come for Earth. And when that day arrived, humanity would answer not with submission, but with silence, steel, and black fire. As the alien fleet adjusted, preparing to fire again, the first human ship broke formation. Its hull shimmered, revealing the name Erebus, etched in dark alloy. No heat signature, no visible weaponry, yet it moved faster than any known vessel, cutting through the void like a blade through smoke. The Zareth sensors tried to track it and failed. The ship vanished, then reappeared behind the largest enemy cruiser. For a heartbeat, the void went still. Then a single pulse erupted from the Erebus's prow. The alien cruiser disintegrated into dust. On Earth, the night sky rippled with light as fragments of alien wreckage streaked through the atmosphere like falling stars. People stared upward, unaware that the impossible had just happened. Humanity had struck back. The Empire's voice returned, no longer calm. Unidentified vessels, stand down. This is a galactic violation. Identify yourselves. No answer. Only the silent formation of the Black Armada advancing, each ship glowing faintly along its edges. The Empire fired. Energy beams cut across space, brilliant and lethal, but the black ships absorbed them, bending light and gravity alike. They moved as one, coordinated like a living organism, responding with precision that seemed almost impossible for humans. Yet it was human, born of desperation, ingenuity, and the defiance that had kept the species alive since fire and stone. Back on Earth, somewhere in an abandoned mountain facility, an old man watched the live feed through static-filled screens. His hair was white, his uniform worn, but his eyes were steady. He had waited decades for this day. When an aide asked if they should respond to the Empire's demands, he only said, "Let them see what happens when they threaten home." The Black Armada continued its silent approach, engines burning with invisible fire. For the first time in galactic history, the Zareth Dominion found itself uncertain. Their calculations had never accounted for this. For a world that refused to kneel, for a species that built weapons in secret just to ensure its freedom. Then the Empire made one last transmission, its tone shaken but commanding. You cannot win. You are a primitive world. Stand down before we erase you. And somewhere beyond Pluto, the Erebus replied, not with words, but with a signal that spread through every human network, every device still clinging to power. It was a phrase from Earth's oldest languages, broadcast to every corner of the planet and every ship in orbit. It said simply, "Humanity does not surrender." As the message echoed through the void, the Empire's formation shifted, and the stars around them seemed to distort. The Black Armada began to move again, faster, tighter, forming a spear point directed straight toward the alien command ship. The air on Earth was still. Every eye that looked toward the night sky sensed it, even without knowing why. Something was coming, and in that silence, before the first true battle for Earth began, humanity took a single breath as the void itself prepared to burn. The first strike changed everything. When the Erebus destroyed that alien cruiser, it wasn't just a battle, it was a declaration. Across the Empire's long history of conquest, no world had ever struck back with such precision, such audacity. The Zareth command faltered for the briefest moment, recalculating what kind of enemy they had just awakened. But to the humans watching from their darkened planet, it was the first spark of hope in days of fear. People came out of shelters, staring at the sky, wondering if those streaks of light were the end or the beginning. Governments re-established faint contact through emergency channels. Military officers spoke in hushed tones about unknown human vessels appearing on long-range scans. No one admitted it publicly, but the world knew someone, somewhere, had been preparing for this. Humanity had an answer waiting in the dark. In an old control station buried under the Swiss Alps, flickering monitors showed grainy images of the battle. Engineers, scientists, and officers, many too old to be in uniform, stood shoulder to shoulder. The man at the center of it all, the same one who had once uttered the words, "Let them see," now stared at the incoming data with quiet pride. He was one of the original architects of the ARC initiative. Decades ago, when politicians argued about budgets and treaties, he and a handful of others had seen the pattern. The rising signals, the strange radio noise from deep space, the hints that Earth was being watched. Back then, they had been dismissed as paranoid dreamers. Funding was cut, and the project was buried under layers of secrecy. But they hadn't stopped. Using hidden networks, old Cold War bunkers, and forgotten orbital assets, they built in silence. They gathered what was left of humanity's best minds and told them one truth: we prepare or we vanish. The first ships were failures, unstable reactors, drives that tore themselves apart. Many lives were lost before the first stable prototype was built. The Erebus was among those early vessels, designed not for exploration, but for survival. The fleet that now filled the outer edges of the solar system had grown from those beginnings. A collective effort born not of governments, but of human determination. Each ship represented a nation's secret, a scientist's sacrifice, or a soldier's dream. As the battle above intensified, the Empire tried to adapt. Alien cruisers spread into a defensive arc, their energy fields pulsing with color. They fired in synchronized bursts, filling the void with light so bright it shimmered in Earth's atmosphere. But the black ships moved like ghosts, darting between beams, vanishing before impact. They didn't fight with brute force. They fought with strategy, precision, and something more frightening to the aliens: unpredictability. On one of those ships, deep in the command chamber of the Erebus, the crew worked in near silence. The captain, a woman with years of experience in black ops, stood before a holographic projection of Earth and the enemy fleet. Her crew followed every command with unshakable discipline. Most of them had lived their entire lives off-world, training in the hidden colonies near Neptune. They were the children of the initiative, raised to fight for a home they had never seen. One of the younger officers, his voice steady but strained, reported that the Empire was transmitting on open channels again. The captain nodded. "Patch it through." The alien voice returned, sharper now, the calm gone. "Human vessels, your defiance will destroy your world. You cannot stand against the Zareth Dominion." The captain stared at the signal before replying, her voice low and controlled. "You've already underestimated us once. You won't get a second chance." Then she cut the transmission. Around her, the crew exchanged brief looks, half fear, half pride. None of them expected to survive this battle, but they had been trained for one purpose: to make humanity's resistance undeniable. Down on Earth, people were beginning to remember what unity felt like. Across broken cities, families huddled around battery radios as news began to spread. A voice from the surviving military networks repeated the same message every hour: "The Black Armada fights for Earth. Do not give up." It wasn't much, but it was enough to ignite something that had been fading: belief. Meanwhile, in the Empire's flagship, the Zareth Regent watched the data streams in silence. The alien leader was surrounded by shimmering blue light, its features obscured behind a mask of liquid metal. To the Regent, humanity had been classified as an undeveloped, isolated race. A curiosity, not a threat. Their weapons were primitive, their technology inefficient. Yet here they were, fielding ships that defied every known galactic model. The regent's advisors whispered theories, perhaps stolen alien tech, perhaps interference from rival powers. None dared suggest the truth, that humanity had built this on its own. The regent's gaze turned toward a hologram of Earth, its oceans and continents glowing faintly. "They are primitive," it said quietly. "Yet they learn faster than any species we have conquered." Orders were issued. The Empire's fleet was to double its strength and prepare for full planetary suppression. Reinforcements were already on their way through subspace corridors, ships that would outnumber the human fleet 100 to 1. But the Regent knew something had changed. It could sense it, like a shift in gravity, a species awakening to its potential. Back on the Erebus, the captain stood near the observation deck, watching the glow of distant stars. The void was quiet for the moment, but she knew it wouldn't last. Around her, the fleet moved like a shadow tide, hundreds of black hulls holding position, waiting for the next strike. She thought of Earth, of the cities she had never walked, the oceans she had never seen. For her and her crew, the planet wasn't just home. It was a promise, a reason. Her second-in-command approached. "Command wants to know our next move. The aliens are regrouping." She didn't answer right away. Her eyes remained on the faint blue glow of Earth. "We hold. Let them come closer. The closer they get, the more they'll learn about fear." The officer nodded, understanding the unspoken truth. Humanity wasn't fighting for victory. It was fighting to remind the galaxy that it existed, that it would not fade quietly. Every battle, every ship lost, was a message written in fire. We are still here. In the shadows of deep space, far from both fleets, a signal flickered across the void. It wasn't from Earth or the Armada. It came from beyond the solar system, encrypted in a language only human eyes could read. Somewhere, someone, or something, was watching. The signal contained fragments of old human data, coordinates, schematics, and the faint echo of a voice that seemed decades old. It spoke one line before vanishing into static. "Phase 2 is ready." No one on Earth received that message, but on one of the Black Armada's hidden outposts near the Kuiper Belt, an AI system came online. Its screens glowed with symbols of human origin. Files unlocked, engines began to warm. Dormant ships, long abandoned, started to hum. The Ark Initiative hadn't built just one fleet. It had built layers of defense, each waiting for a signal that had finally arrived. The captain of the Erebus didn't know it yet, but humanity's reach extended farther than even she imagined. Deep in the black, older ships stirred. Unmanned vessels designed to fight without hesitation, guided by the same principle as their human creators. Survive, adapt, endure. The Empire's reinforcements were coming. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and still surrounded. But for the first time in history, Earth wasn't alone. The void had turned into a battlefield of wills, and both sides were preparing for what came next. The stars shimmered faintly as new signals appeared at the edge of the system. The Empire's second wave. The calm before the storm broke as the sensors of the Erebus lit up with hostile signatures. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The captain took one last look at the blue sphere of Earth and whispered, "This is where we stand." And as the darkness around Neptune erupted in light once again, humanity's black ships surged forward, silent, fearless, and bound by one truth: surrender was never an option. The battle near Neptune erupted like a storm of light and shadow. The Empire's reinforcements emerged from subspace in perfect formation, rows of silver and blue vessels, their hulls gleaming like blades. They filled the dark with power and precision, each one broadcasting the same signal of domination: surrender or be erased. Against that endless wave, the Black Armada seemed small, only a few hundred ships holding a fragile line around the edges of the solar system. Yet, even outnumbered, the human fleet didn't move to retreat. They waited, silent and patient, letting the enemy make the first move. Inside the Erebus, the hum of the engines was constant. The crew sat at their stations, faces lit by dim blue light. The captain stood at the center, watching as holographic projections displayed the enemy's approach. Her second-in-command adjusted the targeting grid and whispered, "They're spreading into a net formation. They want to trap us between Neptune and Pluto." The captain nodded, her jaw tight. "Then we don't let them close it. We break the net before it forms." The bridge fell silent again as the fleet prepared to engage. No one spoke of fear anymore. They all knew what they were fighting for: home, survival, and the belief that humanity's spirit was worth defending. Far below, deep in Earth's underground networks, the old command centers were alive again. Scientists and engineers who had once worked in secret were now trying to link with the fleet's encrypted channels. Communication was unstable, scattered across different frequencies. Still, every time they managed to reach one of the black ships, they sent the same message: "Earth believes in you. Don't stop." Amid the chaos, another subplot began to take shape, one that few were aware of. In a hidden facility beneath Antarctica, a small research team had reactivated one of the Ark Initiative's forgotten programs. It wasn't a weapon or a ship. It was a vault, filled with ancient data recovered from deep space long before the war began. The data contained fragments of something no one had been able to explain: star maps, written in a hybrid of human code and an alien dialect. Some believed it was proof that humanity had been contacted, or even manipulated, long before the Zareth Dominion appeared. The lead scientist stared at the projection, the map shifting slowly in front of him. The coordinates seemed to trace a path not away from Earth, but toward it, as if someone, or something, had been marking the planet's location for centuries. "They knew about us," he whispered, "before we even knew about them." Back in space, the first clash began. The Zareth fleet opened fire, unleashing waves of energy that lit the void in violent colors. But the Black Armada didn't scatter. Instead, they moved as one. Their ships glided through enemy fire, warping gravity to bend space itself. When they returned fire, it was with surgical precision, every shot hitting weak points the Empire didn't even realize they had. The Erebus darted between two alien cruisers, its dark hull absorbing the heat from their weapons. "Lock targets," the captain ordered. "Pulse cannons, full charge." A moment later, a silent burst erupted from the ship's prow. Both enemy vessels vanished into vapor. The crew cheered, but the captain didn't smile. For every ship they destroyed, a dozen more were arriving. The sky around Neptune was turning into a graveyard of debris. In the Empire's command vessel, the Zareth Regent watched the battle unfold, its expression unreadable. "They are reckless," one of its lieutenants said. "Their ships burn too much energy. They cannot sustain this." The Regent didn't respond at first. Then it said quietly, "You don't understand humans. They are chaos given form. The more they lose, the harder they fight." The Regent's words proved true. Even as ships were lost, the remaining human vessels adapted. Crews adjusted strategies on the fly, turning debris fields into cover and broken ships into weapons. A damaged human frigate rammed a Zareth destroyer head-on, sacrificing itself to take the enemy with it. Every explosion echoed across the void like a heartbeat. But beneath the surface of the battle, something else was happening, something no one had expected. The Ark Initiative's hidden AI, the one that had activated near the Kuiper Belt, began transmitting on frequencies even the Empire couldn't intercept. It wasn't communicating with the fleet. It was scanning the enemy, learning. Every movement, every signal, every pulse of energy, it absorbed and analyzed them all. Within hours, it began to alter the Black Armada's tactical data. Ships started receiving silent updates, changing formation patterns and targeting systems. At first, the human crews didn't notice, but soon they realized their ships were reacting faster, almost anticipating the enemy's moves. It was as if the fleet was learning on its own. On the Erebus, the captain frowned at her console. "We didn't program these maneuvers," she said. Her officer glanced at the data. "They're coming from an external relay, but I can't trace it. It's human code." "Then someone's helping us," the captain said, though the unease in her tone betrayed her doubt. As the battle raged, humanity's resistance began to turn into something larger, a war not just for survival, but for truth. Who had really created the Ark Initiative? How much of it had been human and how much had come from somewhere else? Down on Earth in the Antarctic vault, the scientists finally decrypted one of the alien data fragments. What they found chilled them. The symbols matched those found on ancient human artifacts, drawings from caves, carvings from civilizations that had never met. Somehow the same patterns appeared in the alien data. It wasn't a coincidence. Humanity had been seen before, maybe even shaped. The lead scientist transmitted the information to the defense network, hoping it would reach someone in command. But before he could send the full file, the facility lost power. The lights went out, and in the darkness, one of the old consoles flickered with a single message. "They're not coming for Earth. They're coming for what's buried beneath it." Meanwhile, the Black Armada continued its impossible fight. The Erebus led the vanguard, darting between enemy cruisers. On board, tension ran high. Fuel reserves were dropping, weapon cores were overheating, but the captain refused to pull back. Every moment they held the line gave Earth one more chance to prepare. Her communications officer suddenly shouted, "Incoming transmission from the surface! It's fragmented!" The captain leaned forward. "Patch it through!" The signal came through broken, full of static, but the voice was unmistakably human. "This is the Antarctic Vault. The Empire isn't here to conquer us. They're here for something under the ice. Something ancient." Before anyone could ask for clarification, the signal cut off. The captain stood frozen for a moment. Under the ice? The thought sent a chill through her. "Get me orbital scans of Antarctica," she ordered. As the crew worked, the ship trembled from a near miss. A blast struck their shields, lighting the bridge in white. The captain grabbed the rail to steady herself. "Hold position. I want that scan now." When the data came through, the image made her heart stop. Under the Antarctic ice, buried kilometers deep, was a structure, massive, circular, older than anything human-made. The readings showed faint energy patterns pulsing from it, responding to the presence of the alien fleet. It wasn't a weapon or a base. It was something else. Something waiting. She turned to her crew, voice low. "This isn't just a battle. It's a race." The Black Armada fought harder than ever, but the Empire seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. Their reinforcements filled the outer system, pressing closer toward Earth. Yet despite the chaos, one truth became clear. The Empire wasn't focused on destroying humanity anymore. They were trying to reach that buried structure. In the silence between explosions, the captain made a decision. "Send a ship back to Earth. Tell them to seal Antarctica. Whatever's under that ice, it's the real reason they came." And as the Erebus turned back toward the front lines, the stars burned brighter than ever, while deep beneath Earth's frozen wastelands, something ancient stirred, answering a call older than humanity itself. The storm over Earth had no thunder, only silence broken by light. From every continent, people watched the night sky glow as the war spread closer. What had once been distant flashes near Neptune now burned across the heavens, streaks of silver and black cutting through the stars. Humanity didn't know the details, but everyone could feel it. The fight had reached its breaking point. The Erebus was no longer a ship. It was a scarred survivor. Entire sections of its hull were scorched, engines sputtering, systems flickering between life and death. But it still moved, cutting through the dark like a wounded animal refusing to fall. Inside, the crew worked without rest. They hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. The captain stood by the observation window, eyes fixed on the growing swarm of alien vessels pushing through the outer orbit of Mars. Her voice was calm, but her body showed the strain. "How long until they reach Earth?" "6 hours," her second-in-command answered. "Maybe less if they burn full drive." The captain exhaled slowly. "Then we hold them for 7. Behind her, the communications officer tried again to reach Earth's command. Static filled the room. Then, for a brief second, a voice cut through the interference. "This is Central Command. We've confirmed the signal from Antarctica. Energy levels rising beneath the ice. It's reacting to something in orbit. We believe it's—" The message ended abruptly, replaced by a sharp burst of static that made everyone on the bridge wince. The captain turned toward the display showing Earth's southern pole. The readings had grown stronger, massive heat signatures pulsing from under the ice. Whatever was buried there was waking up, and both sides knew it. The Empire's ships had stopped targeting human cities. They were focused entirely on reaching the pole. In the Antarctic vault, the scientists who had discovered the structure were still trying to keep communication alive. The lead researcher stood surrounded by screens flashing red warnings. Tremors shook the ground above as strange energy waves rippled through the facility. "We've tried every analysis we can," one of his assistants shouted. "It's not a reactor. It's not alien machinery. It's alive." The scientist stared at the readings, heartbeats, faint but unmistakable. Something beneath the ice had a pulse. "It's been dormant," he said softly, "and now it's responding to them." On the other side of the galaxy, in the Zareth command vessel, the Regent listened as its lieutenants confirmed the readings. "So, the humans have uncovered it," the alien leader said quietly. "The lost core. It wasn't supposed to awaken here." Another officer asked, "Do you believe it's the same artifact that destroyed the Arkan colonies?" The Regent's metallic form shifted slightly. "Yes. The humans think it belongs to them. They have no idea what they're standing on." While the Empire prepared to descend toward Earth, the Black Armada gathered for what might be its last stand. Across the fleet, captains sent their final transmissions to Earth, messages to families, to friends, to a home they might never see again. Some spoke of hope, others only silence. The Erebus led the charge. Around it, the remaining human ships formed a wedge, cutting into the center of the alien formation near Mars. Explosions rippled through the void, silent yet vast, like stars being born and dying in the same instant. The alien fleet pushed forward, relentless, their technology superior in every measurable way. But humanity fought with something the Empire couldn't quantify: rage, courage, love. The will to protect what they couldn't replace. Inside the Erebus, power flickered. The engineer shouted over the noise, "Main reactor down to 40%. We won't make it to Earth if we stay here." The captain didn't hesitate. "Then we'll make sure they don't either." As the battle raged, fragments of ships drifted across space like ghosts. The void was littered with debris, pieces of both fleets, human and alien. Every passing minute drew the conflict closer to Earth. Humanity's last line of defense, the orbital network once used for satellites and weather control, had been reprogrammed into a crude shield. It wasn't much, but it was all they had left. Back on Earth, people watched from rooftops and ruins as the aurora stretched across the sky in colors no one had ever seen. What they didn't know was that it wasn't natural. It was energy bleeding through the atmosphere from the battle above. And in the midst of it, Antarctica glowed faintly blue. The ice was cracking. The lead scientist stood near the main vault door, his face pale. "Seal the tunnels," he ordered. "Now!" His team hesitated. "But the readings, if it breaches, we need to know what it is." He looked at them, eyes wide with something between awe and fear. "That's exactly why we need to seal it." A deep vibration rolled through the ground, followed by a low, rhythmic pulse that made the air tremble. The temperature dropped instantly, frost crawling along the walls even as the lights flickered. The sound wasn't mechanical, it was alive, like a massive heartbeat echoing from below. Above, the Empire's fleet broke through the human defenses near Mars. The Regent gave the order. Focus all power on the planet. Protect the core at all costs. Its lieutenants hesitated. The core is beneath human territory. You mean to— Do it, the Regent snapped. If they awaken it before we arrive, this entire sector will burn. The alien ships adjusted formation and began their descent toward Earth. But the Black Armada was not finished. As the Erebus turned toward the incoming Armada, the captain's hands tightened on the controls. Target their lead carriers, she ordered. Divert all remaining power to the rail cannons. Her crew obeyed without question. The ship trembled as the weapons charged. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but they didn't stop. On her command, a storm of kinetic fire ripped through the void, striking the Empire's front line. 3 massive alien vessels exploded at once, their remains scattering into the darkness. The rest of the fleet hesitated for a moment, just long enough for the humans to regroup. "Signal from Earth!" the communications officer shouted. "They say the artifact is destabilizing the magnetic field. They're detecting gravitational shifts across the poles." The captain's voice dropped. "Then we're running out of time." In the Antarctic vault, the scientists' team fought to keep the power online. The ground cracked open, and from the ice came light, bright, pulsing, almost beautiful. It formed symbols on the walls, old and familiar, matching carvings found in ancient ruins across the world. As the symbols connected, an energy wave surged upward, shooting into the sky. Satellites detected it instantly. The pulse passed through the atmosphere and into orbit, hitting both fleets. Every system flickered. Engines shut down. Sensors went blind. For a moment, all of space seemed to hold its breath. Then a voice, not alien, not machine, but human, echoed through every frequency. It spoke in a dozen languages at once, calm and steady. "We are awake." On the Erebus, the crew froze. The captain looked around the bridge, her heart pounding. What was that? No one answered. Every monitor showed the same signal, a single symbol glowing white against black. The open hand, the same emblem carved onto the hulls of the Black Armada. The communications officer whispered, "It's coming from Earth." The captain turned toward the planet. The light from the southern pole was now blinding, cutting through the clouds and reaching into space. Around it, the Empire's ships were struggling to maintain control. Some began to drift, pulled by a force they couldn't resist. In the Zareth flagship, the Regent's voice was full of alarm. "It's not supposed to respond to them. It was never meant for humans." One of its officers shouted, "We have to retreat." But before the order could be given, a new energy surge erupted from the pole, spreading outward like a tide. Every ship, human and alien, felt its pull. The Erebus's controls went dead. The captain gripped the console, shouting over the chaos, "Stabilize the engines, don't let it drag us in." Her engineer's voice cracked through the static. "It's not pulling us down, it's pulling everything." In that moment, the truth became terrifyingly clear. Whatever was buried beneath Antarctica wasn't just ancient. It was powerful enough to rewrite the rules of gravity, energy, maybe even life itself. And now, it was awake. The captain looked out the viewport one last time, her eyes reflecting the growing light over Earth. She whispered, "This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about who we are." The stars themselves seemed to shudder. The Empire's fleet broke apart under the strain, while the Black Armada tried desperately to maintain formation. The void between worlds filled with light so intense it painted every shadow in gold. And as the final wave of energy erupted outward, touching every ship, every city, every soul, the universe went silent again, just before everything changed. The light vanished as suddenly as it had come. One heartbeat, the sky over Earth was burning with color, and the next, everything went black. Across the planet, every piece of technology, from satellites to radios to the smallest digital watch, went silent. The people of Earth stood under a sky without stars, the air heavy and still, as if the world itself had stopped breathing. Then, slowly, the stars returned. But they weren't the same. Constellations had shifted. Space itself had moved. On the Erebus, alarms blared as systems struggled to reboot. The crew stumbled from their stations, dazed but alive. Panels sparked, consoles flickered, and the captain stood gripping the railing, her gaze locked on the view beyond the glass. Earth was there, but it wasn't the same Earth. Its orbit had changed. The moon glowed red, fractured along its edges like cracked stone, and streaks of debris surrounded the planet in a ring of light. "What just happened?" her officer whispered. The captain didn't answer. The readings made no sense. Gravitational fields were fluctuating, magnetic poles reversed, and space-time distortions rippled like waves around the planet. Whatever had awakened beneath the ice had changed everything, not just on Earth, but in the void itself. On the other side of the system, the remnants of the Zareth fleet were in chaos. Their formations shattered, their ships scattered. The Regent's command vessel spun violently, trying to stabilize. Its lieutenants shouted reports, but the data was useless. Sensors couldn't read distances. Coordinates meant nothing. "We've lost subspace calibration," one cried. "We're not in the same sector anymore." The Regent's metallic form pulsed with blue energy as it stared at the hologram of Earth. "Impossible," it murmured. "The core has shifted reality." But there was something else. A signal coming from the planet. At first, the Regent thought it was interference until the message grew stronger. A voice spoke, not in the alien tongue, but in the Regent's own language, perfectly replicated. "You tried to claim what you did not understand," it said softly. "Now you will witness what we were meant to become." Back on Earth, the world was unraveling in quiet terror. The pulse had thrown entire continents into disarray. Oceans surged inland, magnetic storms swept across the skies, and communication was still nearly impossible. Yet in the midst of the chaos, strange things began to happen. People started hearing whispers, echoes that weren't quite voices, resonating through their minds. Some felt drawn toward the south, toward the ice where it had all begun. In the Antarctic vault, the surviving scientists struggled to stay conscious. The facility was half destroyed, buried in collapsed tunnels. The lead researcher woke in darkness, coughing through dust, his ears ringing. When he managed to crawl toward the faint light above, he saw something that made him freeze. The ice above the chamber wasn't solid anymore. It was glowing faintly, fluid, alive, like a living curtain shifting with color. Behind it, faint shapes moved, tall and indistinct, as if something enormous was stirring beneath the surface. He reached for his communicator, but it was dead. The last thing he remembered before blacking out again was a single line that appeared on one of the surviving monitors. Phase 2 initiated. On the Erebus, power returned slowly. The crew was shaken, their instruments unreliable, but a signal began to cut through the static, faint, human, coming from Earth's surface. "This is ground command," the voice said, weak but steady. "The core is active. Repeat, the core is fully active. The ice has split. It's not a structure, it's a vessel." The captain leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "A vessel?" The signal cracked with interference. "We don't know what kind. It's enormous, miles wide. It's buried beneath the crust. It's pushing energy through the planet's magnetic field. We think it's preparing to—" The line went dead. Outside, Earth's southern hemisphere began to glow again. But this time, the light wasn't confined to the pole. Massive auroras spread outward, wrapping the planet in ribbons of blue and white. Space around Earth bent, shimmering like a heat haze. The Erebus's sensors picked up a rising energy signature so powerful it distorted gravity itself. Her engineer whispered, "It's not just a vessel. It's charging something." The captain turned toward her crew, her voice steady but sharp. "All ships, fall back from orbit. Keep distance from the poles." But before the command could spread through the fleet, a new transmission broke through. The Empire's regent, its voice trembling for the first time. "Human commander," it said, "you don't understand what you've awakened. That ship is not yours. It's a remnant of the old architects. They built it to reshape worlds. If it activates fully, your planet will be consumed." The captain hesitated. "Then why are you still here?" The regent's answer was simple. "Because if it falls into your control, the Dominion will never survive." For a moment, silence filled the bridge. The implications hit everyone at once. The Empire wasn't fighting for conquest anymore. They were fighting to stop whatever was buried beneath the ice from awakening completely. Humanity had thought they were defending Earth. Now they might be defending the very thing that could destroy it. The captain turned back to the screen, staring at the light growing across the planet. "You started this," she said quietly. "Now we finish it." The regent's voice hardened. "If you wish to survive, you'll help us contain it." But before any agreement could form, a blinding pulse erupted from the planet. Every ship, human and alien, was forced to shield sensors as an energy wave tore through the void. When the light faded, something vast was rising from the Earth's southern hemisphere. The ice shattered like glass, and from beneath it emerged a shape that blotted out the sky. It wasn't metal in the traditional sense. It was a mixture of stone and light, ancient and mechanical at once. The vessel dwarfed mountains. Its surface was carved with symbols that shimmered faintly, forming constellations that no human or alien had ever recorded. And as it rose higher, the Earth's magnetic field twisted around it, forming a halo of energy that reached into orbit. The Erebus trembled. The captain whispered, "It's not a weapon. It's a machine." Her officer turned, eyes wide. "A machine for what?" Before she could answer, a transmission came through, this time from within the ship itself. The AI that had guided the Black Armada, the hidden system that had remained silent since the war began, spoke with a calm, human voice. "The architects designed the core to restore balance when chaos reached its peak. But the parameters have been corrupted. It no longer distinguishes creation from destruction." The captain's heart sank. "You're saying it's going to—" "Yes," the AI replied. "It will reset the system. Everything." On the alien command ship, panic spread as sensors confirmed the readings. The regent stood motionless, realization settling like a weight. The core wasn't just reshaping Earth. It was preparing to rewrite the entire solar system. The Empire's technology, the human ships, even the stars around them, all were being pulled into its influence. And then came the second shock. From deep space, beyond the solar boundary, new signals began to appear. Massive energy signatures moving toward Earth. At first, the humans thought it was more alien reinforcements. But the patterns were wrong. The signals were identical to the ones coming from the core itself. There were more of them. The captain's voice trembled as she said, "There are others." The AI confirmed. "Multiple architect cores. They are responding to the first one's activation." The realization spread through the fleet like wildfire. The Empire hadn't stumbled upon a single ancient relic. They had triggered a network. Each core, hidden in different systems, had just woken up, and all of them were now converging on Earth. The captain turned toward her crew, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Send this to every ship, human or Zareth. We're not enemies anymore. If we don't stop this, there won't be a galaxy left to fight over." Outside, the colossal vessel over Antarctica began to rotate slowly, its core glowing brighter. The air shimmered, Space twisted, and the stars themselves began to distort. Somewhere inside the great machine, something ancient, something aware, had opened its eyes. And as both fleets gathered in the dying light of the system, united by fear and desperation, the truth settled in. The war had never been between humanity and the Empire. It was between everything that lived and what was now waking to replace it. The light from the core was now blinding, flooding the entire southern sky with shifting waves of color. The oceans boiled at the poles, the Earth's crust trembled, and even the clouds seemed to glow from within. Every living creature felt it, the deep vibration running through the planet, like a heartbeat growing stronger with every pulse. In orbit, the Erebus shuddered as the gravitational field bent and twisted around it. Across the fleet, humans and aliens alike were struggling to hold their ships steady. The captain stood on the bridge, staring at the screen that showed the monstrous vessel rising from beneath the ice. It was fully awake now, humming with impossible energy. "How much time before it reaches critical output?" she asked, her voice hoarse. The AI responded, calm but urgent. 8 minutes. When it peaks, it will trigger a chain reaction across the solar system. Every architect core within range will respond. Her officer turned toward her. "We can't stop that thing, not with weapons." The captain's gaze hardened. "Then we find another way." She turned toward the communications console. "Open a channel to the Regent." Static filled the bridge for a moment before the alien's hologram appeared, its metallic form flickering. The Regent looked drained, as if even its synthetic body struggled to remain stable under the core's growing field. "You feel it too," the captain said quietly. The Regent nodded slowly. "It's rewriting physical constants. Space itself is losing definition. Soon, matter will dissolve back into base energy. The architect's reset is beginning. Then help me stop it." The Regent's eyes dimmed. "We have already tried. You humans unleashed what was meant to stay buried. It cannot be undone." But then, from somewhere behind the captain, the AI spoke again. "It can be redirected." Both turned toward the sound. The AI continued. "The core's programming seeks balance. It's searching for an anchor, a stable reference point to rebuild from. If we can synchronize its signal with a unified consciousness, it might stabilize instead of erase." The captain frowned. "A unified consciousness? You mean every mind connected at once?" "Yes. Human and Zareth. All living awareness focused as one signal. It would require direct neural synchronization between both species and the core." The Regent stiffened. "That's impossible. Our neural matrices are incompatible." "Not entirely," the AI replied. "The Black Armada was designed using fragments of captured Zareth technology. There's overlap in the resonance frequency of human and Zareth thought patterns." The captain's jaw tightened. "Then we link both fleets. Every mind we can. It's our only chance." The Regent hesitated. For a moment, pride flickered in its glowing eyes. But then it faded, replaced by something that almost looked like acceptance. "Very well. If your madness fails, we all perish together." Across orbit, human and Zareth ships opened their communications frequencies. The airwaves filled with noise, languages, voices, panic, prayer. But then, one by one, the channels synchronized. The AI transmitted the connection protocol, linking every neural network, every ship's interface, every living mind that could connect. A deep hum began to rise across the fleet, growing louder until it became a rhythm, a pulse matching the core's own. The captain closed her eyes as the link took hold. Her mind expanded, and suddenly she wasn't just herself anymore. She felt the presence of thousands, millions of others. Human thoughts, alien thoughts, all woven together in a flood of emotion and memory. Fear, anger, hope, regret. The core responded. Its energy field began to shift, no longer chaotic but resonant. The massive structure above Earth paused in its ascent, its patterns flickering like it was listening. The glow stabilized for a moment, its pulse matching the collective heartbeat of the connected minds. "It's working," the AI said. But then something unexpected happened. Deep within the link, a foreign consciousness emerged, vast, cold, and ancient. It wasn't the AI, nor the humans, nor the Zareth. It was the core itself, and it spoke. "You seek to preserve," it said, its voice echoing inside every mind at once. "But your preservation is conflict. Your balance is imbalance. You consume to exist." The captain's voice broke through the neural link. "We've changed. We can learn to live without destroying." The core's light dimmed, pulsing slowly. "You believe in unity through fear, through war, through survival, yet unity born of desperation cannot last." The captain's hands trembled. "Then teach us. Don't erase us." The silence that followed felt endless. Then the core's energy flared again, brighter than before. "Very well. Prove it." Suddenly, the link overloaded. Waves of emotion, grief, love, rage, compassion, collided and merged. The network nearly collapsed under the strain. The captain felt herself slipping away, lost in the flood of countless minds. And then she saw something. Memories from the Zareth, their home world destroyed by their own hunger for control. Images of human wars, alien wars, endless cycles of conquest and ruin. The core showed them everything, forcing both species to face what they had been running from. But amid the chaos, something shifted. The captain reached through the link, not to command, but to share. She opened her own memories, of Earth, of laughter, of the small, fragile beauty of life. And others followed. One by one, humans and Zareth alike sent their memories into the stream. Moments of kindness, sacrifice, connection. The network filled with it until the light became almost unbearable. The core's energy stabilized. For the first time, it didn't pulse like a weapon. It pulsed like a heartbeat. The resonance aligned perfectly, and the AI confirmed. Stabilization achieved. It's listening. But just as relief began to spread, the regent cried out through the link. "Something's wrong. It's still pulling energy from the surrounding space. The process isn't stopping. It's accelerating." The AI analyzed the signal. "The core has selected an anchor." The captain frowned. "What anchor?" "You." Before she could react, a surge of light engulfed her. Her body went rigid, every nerve alive with energy. Through the link, she felt the core's presence focusing entirely on her mind, scanning every thought, every fear. "Humanity's voice must have a vessel," it said. "You are its witness." Her crew shouted her name, but she couldn't hear them. Her consciousness was being drawn into the core's heart, where reality bent and folded. She stood, or thought she stood, in a vast field of stars, surrounded by shapes that shimmered like living constellations. They were the architects, echoes of the beings who had created the cores. One of them spoke, its form shifting like flowing light. "Balance cannot exist without change. The cycle must continue, but its course may be altered." "What does that mean?" she asked. The reset will occur," the voice said gently, "but not as destruction, as renewal." She felt warmth spread through her chest as the energy around her intensified. "What about my people? They will live, but not as they were." Before she could respond, the vision shattered. The core released a final surge of light that enveloped the entire planet. The fleets, the skies, the oceans, everything was consumed in a flash brighter than the sun. Then silence. When the light faded, Earth hung in space, whole but changed. The auroras were gone, the energy storm quiet. The colossal vessel had vanished, leaving only a faint shimmer where it had once been. The human and Zareth fleets floated side by side, their systems rebooting. The Regent stood on its bridge, staring at the calm blue planet below. "It spared them," it whispered. On the Erebus, the crew awoke slowly. The captain's chair was empty. Only her voice echoed faintly through the ship's intercom. "We made it," she said softly. "But remember this. What we were is not what we are anymore." Her officer looked around. "Where is she?" No one knew. The AI finally spoke. "She became part of the core. It used her consciousness to stabilize the reset. She is everywhere now." Down on Earth, the world had changed in subtle ways. The air felt different. The oceans glowed faintly at night. The people who had survived found themselves dreaming of stars they'd never seen. Somewhere deep in their minds, they could still hear her voice, guiding them forward. And far beyond the solar system, in the dark between galaxies, other architect cores stirred. But this time, their light was calm, not destructive. The network had changed, rewritten by human hands. But as peace settled across Earth, a new signal flickered on the edge of deep space, a faint pulse, identical to the core's signature, coming from an uncharted system. The AI detected it first. "Another core has awakened," it said quietly. No one spoke. The crew exchanged glances. Somewhere out there, something else was beginning. And in the silence between stars, a familiar voice whispered through the void, calm, steady, and human. "We're not done yet." The calm after the storm settled slowly, like water returning to its banks. Earth spun quietly in space, scarred but alive. The auroras no longer glowed unnaturally, the oceans no longer churned, and the air seemed lighter, as if the planet itself had exhaled. For the first time in weeks, people could step outside and breathe without fear of war or destruction. Cities were battered, satellites damaged, and communication networks fractured, but life persisted. Humanity had survived not through power alone, but through resilience, unity, and the courage to face the unknown. In orbit, the Black Armada floated quietly above the planet. Ships that had once carried the fury of battle now drifted in silent observation. Human and Zareth vessels remained side by side, neither side making a move to restart hostilities. The Regent, still aboard its flagship, watched the calm Earth below, its luminescent form less imposing and more contemplative. It was the first moment of reflection the alien leader had allowed itself since entering the solar system. The captain of the Erebus had not returned in a physical form. The crew had learned through the AI that she had merged with the core, stabilizing it and guiding the planetary reset. Though her body was gone, her consciousness persisted within the network of architect cores, a silent guardian watching over Earth. The crew had struggled to comprehend her sacrifice, but gradually, a sense of pride replaced the fear. Humanity had not just survived, it had changed the course of its destiny. Across the Antarctic vault, the remaining scientists emerged into the cold sunlight. The ice above the structure had sealed itself into a stable form, no longer shifting violently. The core beneath the crust had gone quiet, its presence now a dormant but protective force. The lead researcher turned to his team, voice trembling but filled with relief. "It's done. The vessel, the core, it's at peace. It will not harm us, but it will always be there, watching, waiting." Down on Earth, people began to rebuild. Survivors returned to cities where debris littered streets, to towns where power grids needed repair, and to homes that had weathered the worst humanity had ever faced. Governments re-established communications, now working alongside the Black Armada's remnants to coordinate recovery efforts. The Zareth, once invaders, had become reluctant allies in stabilization, sharing knowledge to repair satellites, restore communications, and secure critical infrastructure. In space, The AI that had guided the Armada began cataloging the aftermath. Its systems ran silently, monitoring both Earth and the wider solar system, ensuring no residual instability from the core's activation remained. It continued to maintain the neural link created during the battle, now using it to analyze the fleet and prepare for potential threats. Humanity had learned that survival required more than weapons. It required understanding, strategy, and the ability to adapt in ways no single species could achieve alone. The wider human population struggled with the psychological aftermath. Messages had been sent to every corner of the globe, informing people about the core, the battle, and the captain's sacrifice. There were grief and mourning, yes, but also hope. Schools reopened with lessons about resilience and unity. Families rebuilt, communities reconnected, and people took time to reflect on what had been at stake. They remembered not just the terror, but the bravery, the ingenuity, and the enduring spirit that had allowed them to survive. Among the subplots that had lingered in the shadows, the mysteries of the Ark Initiative finally began to resolve. Records once hidden surfaced, detailing decades of preparation, secret research programs, and the deliberate integration of Zareth technology into human vessels. The revelation astonished many, but it also cemented a newfound respect for humanity's ingenuity and perseverance. The initiative had not been a single effort. It was a collective human endeavor, spanning generations, nations, and hidden corners of the world, a testament to determination against impossible odds. The Zareth Regent, meanwhile, made an unprecedented announcement to its fleet. The Empire would withdraw its forces from the solar system and halt further attempts at conquest, at least for now. The humans had proven themselves a force to be reckoned with. But more importantly, they had awakened a power neither side fully understood, and the Regent recognized that caution was the only path forward. It was a lesson the alien species would carry home. Underestimate humanity at your peril. In orbit, the Erebus crew gathered one final time. They had lost many, but they had survived enough to witness a future beyond war. The captain's voice echoed faintly through the ship's neural network. "We have endured. We have proven that unity and courage can shape more than fate. They can define it." The crew stood in silence, absorbing the weight of her words and the truth they represented. Humanity had faced annihilation and emerged not only alive, but transformed. Even as recovery continued, the final unexpected twist of the conflict became apparent. Across the solar system, far beyond Earth, the AI detected faint pulses from deep space, signals that mirrored the core's resonance, originating from uncharted systems. There were others, possibly other architect cores, awakening slowly, responding to the first. The implication was clear. Humanity's victory had stabilized the core beneath Antarctica, but the galaxy was not done with the architects. There were more waiting, and Earth's struggle, while victorious, was only a beginning. Back on the planet's surface, people watched the night sky with renewed awe. The stars seemed brighter, more numerous, as if the universe itself had been realigned. Children pointed upward, marveling at constellations they had never seen. Scientists debated the long-term implications of the core's awakening and the fleet's involvement. Leaders of nations made promises to coordinate and prepare, ensuring that Earth would be ready if the remaining architect cores ever emerged. Humanity had been tested, and the lessons were clear. Courage, unity, and the willingness to face the unknown were as vital as any weapon. The Antarctic Vault became a center for research and observation, a monument to both human ingenuity and the core's enduring presence. The lead scientist had written a final message, archived alongside the data recovered during the battle. "We witnessed the impossible. We survived because we dared to act together. And we will prepare, for the universe does not end with victory, it begins anew with understanding." In space, human and Zareth ships began to return to their respective stations. Some chose to remain in orbit, establishing long-term monitoring of Earth and the core. Others set out to explore beyond the solar system, driven by curiosity and the knowledge that the galaxy contained forces far older and more powerful than they had ever imagined. The alliance between humans and Zareth remained tenuous but functional, built on shared survival and mutual respect. As Earth rebuilt, stories of bravery and sacrifice spread across the world. People remembered the captain who had become part of the core, the engineers and scientists who had kept hope alive, and the soldiers and crews of the Black Armada who had risked everything. These stories became more than history. They became a lesson in what it meant to be human, that courage, compassion, and unity could achieve what seemed impossible, that even in the darkest void, light could be found. And though the solar system had settled into an uneasy calm, the faint pulse of distant architect cores reminded humanity that the universe remained vast and mysterious. The galaxy was alive with potential, danger, and wonder. Humanity's survival had shifted the balance, but it had also opened the door to new challenges. One truth remained constant. The spirit of humanity, tested in fire and shadow, would continue to rise. In the end, Earth turned silently in space, scarred but beautiful. The humans who had survived the storm gazed upward, aware of the fragile power that had protected them. They knew that victory was only temporary, that the galaxy held mysteries still beyond their understanding. But they also knew they had changed the course of their fate. They had faced the void, confronted forces beyond comprehension, and endured. And somewhere deep beneath Antarctica, the core pulsed softly, a quiet guardian, waiting for the next moment the universe demanded its intervention. Humanity had survived. Humanity had grown, and humanity had learned. The stars stretched endlessly above, full of promise and uncertainty, but for the first time in history, Earth faced the cosmos not with fear, but with resolve. The story of survival, courage, and unity had reached its conclusion, for now. But the echoes of what had been awakened lingered, reminding all who gazed at the night sky that the universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of both challenge and possibility. Humanity had survived the storm of the Empire, the awakening of the core, and the clash of civilizations. It had emerged not just as survivors, but as something stronger, wiser, and ready for the future. The galaxy waited. And humanity, for all its flaws and brilliance, would continue to rise.